Hello and welcome to another edition of The Week That Was, a weekly program where you get to sit back and review the headlines of the week. This week we'll be discussing the headlines as usual from the Herald, and we'll be reviewing the week from 15th of June to the 21st of June. To discuss these headlines and the news behind the headlines, I have with me our group editor, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So on 16th we have this headline after many reports before that government sets up an SIT after Herald's land grab reports, and the SIT is headed by SP Crime, and government has said that no stone will be left unturned to protect the land of Goa.
See, the story can be divided into various parts, and even the headline and whatever you just said can be broken up into different segments and silos. But broadly speaking, when we got into the story, when Herald got into the story and this investigation, we very honestly did not know what we were up against.
Yeah.
In the sense that we thought that this would be a canvas of a few limited cases where people have been cheated of their land and stripped of their future and so on and so forth. We did not realize that this is a pandemic of land grabbing which has actually happened. And while it has happened throughout the state of Goa, but the epicenter completely is in the Bardez taluka.
Yeah.
Now the issue is the government now says that there are about 70 odd cases of land grabs that have happened.
Yeah.
I would put that figure to far more than that, because what has happened is that in the majority of the cases, the people who have registered or have had the guts to go to the police and register an FIR or register a complaint rather, they are up against a big wall, because what has happened is that unless the complaint becomes an FIR, that doesn't come into the ambit of the cases that are being counted to be investigated and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised to know that the majority of the FIRs, or many of the FIRs at least, at the very least, have happened after Herald started this whole investigative series called the Great Goa Land Grab. And only when we started documenting case after case after case relentlessly on a daily basis, showing the entire gamut of the whole scam, these FIRs were registered only post that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one part of it. The second part of it is the setting up of the SIT inquiry.
Yeah.
Now, again, my gut feeling is that it's a fait accompli, for the simple reason that if you look at other SIT inquiries that have also happened in the past, there is a delay in essentially fixing the terms of reference, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, the SIT inquiry is being conducted by the crime branch, well and good. But if there are, even if we take into account 70 cases, does the crime branch have the wherewithal to go in depth into these cases, because they are not normally thefts and rape and dacoity and all these cases.
Yeah.
These are very complex cases which involves manipulation to the largest degree. And until unless you are well versed with the way the land laws are and the way the manipulations happen, this cannot be investigated by a sub-inspector or a PI.
Yeah.
If you see, I have seen some of the FIRs of many of these cases, and the IOs are PSI level officers, they are constables. Now, do they have the wherewithal to actually look into land laws, to look into the manipulation of Form 1 and 14 which really happens, to look into how death certificates have been forged? We know a case where a person died in the year 1995, okay? But a death certificate in his name was issued in 1991 or 92. I may be wrong in the year itself, but the period is around that time. A guy who was living had a death certificate in his name 4 years before he actually died. And based on that death certificate, his land was transferred to somebody else while he was living.
Yeah.
So my issue is, do you think that the police has the capacity to, a sub-inspector has the capacity to do this? Because the crime branch inquiry, all these cases, now if the crime branch does only this, then the crime branch will have no time or manpower to do something else. So that is the reason why we need to acknowledge the fact that yes, an inquiry has been ordered, but we need to figure out whether this inquiry was going to be successful or not.
Yeah. So basically the modus operandi that has been followed in most of these cases is that the sale deeds are signed either by the person who is dead, or they make a living person dead, as you mentioned.
Yes. So what happens is very simple. One is that if I am the owner of the land, okay, there are 2 or 3 ways it happens. There is one document which says that I have transferred the land to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now this A, B, C, D, E, F, G is a full gang of people. They are not ordinary people.
Yeah.
If you see in the majority of the cases, there are 5 or 6 sets of people who are the buyers, so-called buyers. Okay, no money changes hands. The land is transferred from the original owners, either living or dead, to this lot. This lot hoards these land documents and invariably ultimately sells it to a third party. Now third party could be a big builder from Delhi or Bangalore or Bombay, could be anybody, could be people building villas. So when it ultimately the land is finally transferred to the third party, so second sale or the third sale, when it goes there, very often the third party also is not aware that this sale is absolutely fraudulent because the original papers are forged. So you first have to get down and do a big forgery investigation before you even get into the land investigation.
So and in many of these cases, the persons who are living on the land are, they are not even aware that the names have been formed.
Yes, last week we had we did a report basically on this, and there were 2 people. In fact, there was one gentleman who was living there who was the uncle of the original owner, and he suddenly realized that there were JCBs and bulldozers entering his house to demolish the house and take over the property. So what really happened was his uncle did not even know. His uncle lives in Bombay. He gave the house to his nephew-in-law to live.
Yeah.
And now you have the so-called original owners coming and threatening the actual original owners. The original owners on paper, who are now the original owners on paper, are coming and threatening the original owners. And look at the irony. The original owners are putting up signs saying trespassers will be prosecuted. But on paper, they themselves are trespassers. So this is where the rot really lies. You know.
Okay, so then following in a sequence, on June 17, we have the Chief Minister's statement agreeing, taking off from the investigation done by Herald. The government has taken cognizance, set up an SIT, and then on 17, the Chief Minister declares that the government has come across 60 to 70 land grab cases, and each and every case will be investigated and necessary action will be taken.
काल SITची जी ऑर्डर काढल्या आतापर्यंत पुलिस डिपार्टमेंटाने वेरियस केसीस लोक आपली जमीन दुसऱ्याक विकली, तिसऱ्यानूच विकली. आर्कोलॉजींतल्या आमच्या कन्सर्न डिपार्टमेंटान फायल केले. काही डिपार्टमेंट तिसरो घेवन कोण तरी डॉक्युमेंट व्हरता वेगवेगळे, आनी तांच्यानी तिसरे रजिस्ट्रेशन डिपार्टमेंटान जे रजिस्ट्रेशन करता आसतना ओनर रजिस्ट्रेशन डिपार्टमेंटा कडेन कंप्लेनी आयल्यो की मूळ ओनर सोडून दुसऱ्याने घेवन रजिस्ट्रेशन करता, कितें डॉक्युमेंट फॉर्ज केला आसतना आनी कितें केलां आसतना. अश्यो वेरियस केसीस जर पळयत आतां पर्यंत लक्षान येयल्या त्यो पळयत जाल्यार त्यो म्हाका दिसता एक 60-70 तरी केसीस आसा. आनी वीच इज खूब व्हडलें लँड स्कॅम आसा तशें पळोवंक वचत जाल्यार. आनी ह्यो सगळ्या तालुक्यांनी विशेश करून कोस्टल बेल्टांत चड आसा. जो आमी पळयता की बार्देस आसतलो किंवा तिसवाडी आसतलो, पेडणे आसतलो, ओके, हेवटेन सालसेतीन आसतले थोडेशे, ह्या भागात चड आसा. आनी थोड्या हितूनी गव्हर्मेंट लँड ज्यो आसा पळय न्ही ह्यो तेंच्या नांवार एनक्रोच न्ही तर थोड्याच्या नांवार ट्रान्सफरी केल्ली आसा. ह्योय आमच्या लक्षांत आयला. त्या खातीर अशा पद्दतीच्यो सगळ्यो केसीस ह्यो SIT कडेन करप आनी थॉरोली तातूंतल्यान इन्वेस्टिगेट करप हें काम सुरू करपा खातीर आमी SIT फॉर्म केल्ली आसा.
No, I mean, these are good thoughts. You can't blame the Chief Minister for making these kind of announcements. Because as an announcement, it is absolutely fine. But we need to kind of follow this up and just keep track of how this pans out. Because to my mind, just an investigation by the crime branch and the level of, I'm not even talking about the competency. I'm talking about the fact that do we have the resources? Are there enough people, dedicated people with the wherewithal and the competency to handle the entire 360-degree angle in which you must look into this case.
Now, in this case also, CM mentions that even government land has been taken over and put in somebody else's name.
It is quite possible because the issue is that the government land would be what? It could be government land, it could be Comunidade land, it could be land under panchayat holdings. But my issue is that if this kind of rampant transfers happen, and even if government land has been transferred, it is utterly shameful. It is not only shocking, it is utterly shameful. That if private parties can come and transfer government land, now how low can you get? I mean, if that is really the case, then people should hang their heads in shame. There's no other word for it.
Okay. On 18th of June, that is Saturday, Herald has this headline that police, another scam, police form 5 committees to probe the recruitment scam, and this is the recruitment of PSI, and each panel is to be headed by a DYSP in regard to investigation, and mostly this pertains to a rigged physical efficiency grades which took place.
See, physical efficiency rigging is one of the most common systems or most common methods used to hire people when the motive for the hiring is political and not policing. So what happens is, now suppose a particular MLA, he goes and promises people in the village or his constituency that I will give you 2 PSI jobs, or I'll give you 2 constable jobs. So basically the quota, and it is very open, though it is not talked about. Every MLA, especially the ruling party MLA, everybody has their quotas fixed.
Yeah.
That and the issue is, they say, okay, you supply so many, you allot so many jobs to different constituencies. So most of these constable and PSI jobs are allotted as per the constituency and the power that the respective MLA wields. Now, if he is the minister, he'll obviously have more power.
Yeah.
If you're the chief minister, you have supreme power. So it all depends on the pecking order of importance of the ministers. That is how it is. So what happens if you decide to get a PSI, okay, with a body mass index of 31, when a body mass index of 16 is ideal. Now, a body mass index of 31 is an obese character.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you can have a BMI guy of 31 ultimately being shown as a with a body mass index of 16 or 17 and get it. It's all about what is seen on paper and not what is seen in front of your eyes. So if that kind of manipulation happens, then on paper anything.
So policing and crime investigation is the last thing on their mind.
Well, even if it is the first thing on their mind, are they competent enough to do it? You can sit at home and say, I'm going to be a crack cop and do it. But you need to be fit enough to do that. So that is where the problem is. And yes, you are right. What happens is, when that happens, do you think that PI will ever report to, or the SI or the constable will ever report to his PI or DYSP? Will he take orders from the PI or DYSP? He will take orders directly from his political boss.
Okay, so picking up from this flurry of activity and the establishment of the SIT, the CM promising that action will be taken in these land grab cases, the concerned citizens of Old Goa have demanded an SIT probe into the illegal Old Goa structure, and they say that if any action has to be taken, first case to be taken up is the illegal bungalow within the heritage zone.
मागता गव्हर्नमेंटा लागीं हे बेगीनच्या बेगीन एक्झिक्युशन जावचें, कित्याक हो स्ट्रक्चर एक्झिक्यूट जायना इन प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया. सो हांव म्हणना फुड्यान आमची जितल्यो हेरिटेज सायट्स आहा त्यो सगळ्यो काबार जातल्यो. आनी हांव मागता जे DCP मिनिस्टरान सांगला ओल्ड गोवा आपूण बफर झोन डिमार्केट करतलो 100 मीटर इज वेलकम स्टेप, कित्याक हे जायत आहलें, कित्याक जे परी हे स्ट्रक्चर रिजनल प्लॅनान दाखयना डिमार्केट करना इलिगलिटी चालू उरतली, कित्याक हे जायते डिपार्टमेंटां इनवॉल्व आसता. सो एकामेकाचे ब्लेम घेवन करता बाबा ते स्ट्रक्चर नाले वो ती प्रोटेक्ट सायट डिमार्केट जाल्ली नासली. सो हांव मागता सेकेंड आनी आमचो म्हाजो एक डिमांड आहा, आमचो सगळ्याचो एक डिमांड आहा, एक SIT फॉर्म जावची म्हणून, कित्याक जी परमिशनां दिल्ली आहा ती सारकी फ्रॉड दिला.
Often what happens is, this word SIT or CBI, they are, these phrases, they become absolutely set phrases for any kind of corruption that happens without even thinking whether that's the right route to take. Whereas an SIT in the land grabbing case is justified, but in that illegal bungalow case, I've got nothing against SITs. My issue here is that it is such an open and shut case that you have the Department of Panchayats, which is absolutely equipped to take a decision based on evidence in front of you.
Yeah.
If you look at the old Goa bungalow, there's no rocket science. You do not need any investigation to justify or to even ascertain whether the Old Goa bungalow is legal or illegal. It's a black and white case.
Yeah.
It is blatantly illegal and there are no two ways about it, primarily because it is a heritage structure. It is not a heritage structure, it is in the heritage zone.
Heritage zone.
Now, in that heritage zone, you cannot have any construction activity per se. So, only on that law under the ASI and the Protected Monuments Act, that particular project itself is null and void. Point number one. Point number two, how did they manipulate permission to get that project off the ground?
Yeah.
They essentially went to Parse, a village in North Goa in Perne Taluka. They took pictures of an existing property in Parshe, okay, from where our former chief minister actually comes from.
Yeah.
That's his village. They took pictures from those houses in Parshe, got those pictures, depicted them as pictures in the Old Goa area, saying that it is a very old property which is already lying there, and that finally gets passed. Now, what is shocking is, in that particular land, in that Old Goa structure, there is nothing there.
Yeah.
Okay, it is woody, it is forested. But on paper, you are showing that these are these houses that exist on that particular land. Those houses are not even from Parshe. The Parshe houses have been showed as existing in the Old Goa property.
Yeah.
Now this is you don't need any SIT to say this. My point is everybody knows about it, and there was a very good ASI person in charge at that point of time. He fought against it. The political system manipulated it and transferred him to Chennai or Bangalore, one of these places.
Yeah.
Got another person in it. So sometimes an SIT is demanded or put in just to delay matters. Sometimes it works, but in this particular case, it is done. Now the SIT will get into an inquiry system. It will go on for. But my issue is the construction of this bungalow is still going on. What have you done to stop construction? There is a panchayat. There is a directorate of panchayat. The panchayat order, not director of panchayat. There is an order of the panchayat there, the local panchayat, to stop construction and demolish it. The directorate of panchayats is not even allowing that to happen.
They put a stay on that.
And they put a stay. Now there's a argument going on, and argument is getting adjourned again and again on the simple act. You have the panchayat which has taken a people-oriented decision to demolish it. The director of panchayats is objecting that particular order. At the same time, you might have a sit, and the sit goes on investigation. By the time everything finishes, you have a full-fledged bungalow there, and then the owners of the bungalow will again go to High Court and Supreme Court and put a stay on construction and enjoy the benefits of it. So I'm just saying this farce has to stop completely.
Next up, we have June 19th. There is a proposal of the government to pass an amendment to the Code of Comunidades, and it says that there is a proposal for a major overhaul in the Code of Comunidades, and people who are pro-Comunidad or people who are working the Comunidades said that this is totally illegal. There are others who have taken a line saying that amending the Code of Comunidades is not within the domain of any state legislature.
Okay, I'll first let us take everybody back to whether the state itself has the power to legislate on this or not.
Yeah.
Because the point is, how are the Comunidades governed? They are governed by the Code of Comunidades. They are not governed by any state legislature or any state that has been enacted.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we forget these simple truths. The amendment of any law or any rule of the Comunidades has to be governed by Article 652 of the Code of Comunidades. My issue is only under Article 652 of the Code of Comunidades can you amend any of the existing laws of the Comunidad.
Yeah.
That's point number one.
Yeah.
That has not been applied here. The state has decided to do it. Okay?
Yeah.
Point number one. Point number two, Article 372A of the existing constitution very clearly says that you cannot interfere with existing land use, which is already existing, and these are not just land use, these are traditional land uses. So if these are traditional community land,
Yeah.
So this particular Act 372A specifies that you cannot tamper with lands held under the custody and possession of community which are serving as community lands for the benefit of the community. Why was it done? It was basically done. I'll tell you there's a reason why this was done also, and the reason why the Comunidades were constituted in the first place.
Yeah.
The point is the Comunidad was constituted to basically protect your land and your forests and other things within the village so that no outside force or law could interfere with your village lands.
Yeah.
And why was it done? Because what happened is in Goa of old, you had a lot of saline water which would get into your fields.
Yeah.
Okay? And the salinity in the fields is a disaster for crops.
Yeah.
The original thing was that this community people and people in different communities would have bunds, would have other protective measures to see that saline water doesn't go into it. And that is how Goan farming has been protected for so many centuries.
Yeah.
Because of these kind of laws. Otherwise, all this would have gone. The bunds would have gone, the fields would have gone, our palm trees would have gone, our fishing would have gone, our backwaters would have gone. So the Comunidad, these laws have actually protected us, and Goa remains what it is still because of those laws.
Yeah. Then moving on to Monday, June the 20th, Herald has taken a position: the eye of the land grab investigation must turn towards the eye of the scam, and which is Bardez. So why Bardez?
This is how we began. Well, why Bardez? Because there is empirical evidence that this has happened in Bardez at all. See, what happens is, Bardez is the new pot of gold right now. Okay, so all the gold diggers have come there because it is like entering into one region where you say that there is a lot of gold here. All the gold diggers of the world will come and dig where the gold is. And why Bardez? Because Bardez is the seat of tourism, as it were. You have the majority of the constructions going on. Most of the hotels are there. That has become the so-called, the tourist belt. And the tourist belt is moved away from Kalangut and Baga, and now it's in Morji, Perne, and that into the, not just in the interiors, even in the coasts. So it has gone there. Plus, it is now moving into areas like Morji and Aldona and other places.
So essentially, there is a lot of pressure on land.
So Bardez Taluka and Perne Taluka is the nerve center of this, and land has been grabbed. Also, what happens is when all these builders and others come in, construction activity, the construction boom has been maximum in these talukas. And I would also say this also includes the Porvoori area, the Salva Dumund and the Pen de France panchayats. So these two, and then you look at all the panchayats in that whole sector. You look at Kalangut, Kandoli, that whole belt, and then it moves on to the Penne Taluka and the panchayats there. So this is where it is. But that's not to say it's not happening in other areas as well.
Yeah.
It may happen a little bit in the Kolwa belt. It's happening in Kankon, especially in the Palolem beach area. So wherever tourism moves, you will find these kind of illegalities.
So the Herald investigation is to be admired because you have been very incisive in the investigation, and Herald has gone to the extent of naming groups of people who are involved, and these names recur again and again.
Yeah, we have named them because we during our digging we found that these names came up, and these names are actually present. It's not rocket science. You just need to dig and get the papers out. And we've examined so many sale deeds. When you examine every sale deed, you find the same number of people coming up in almost every deed. But again, we're not saying it's a comprehensive list. We are also not saying they are real people. Very often, Julia Fernandez is also known as Julia Rodriguez in many places. Okay, in many places, one Naik is known as a Prabhu Desai. So I'm essentially saying that people have changed their names in different deals also, and nobody's bothered.
Then we have another story on 20th June itself, and a heart-wrenching kind of story where an uncle has taken his nephew and thrown him into a 14-year-old, and he has thrown him into a well.
Yesterday around 4 p.m. I received a phone call from one of the villagers of the Kurtarim informing that they found one minor boy and he is having the bleeding injuries all over and he is muddy. So immediately we rushed at the spot. We found that boy who is a 13 years minor boy, and there was a bleeding injuries on his legs and cheeks, and there was mud all over his body. Immediately we shifted him in the hospital. During investigation we come to know that his uncle took him in that jungle and he threw in the one well there. It's around 35 meters in height.
And
yeah, this is a very, very, very extremely shocking story, and we've heard of this kind of cruelty in the classics of old, but we've read them in fiction. We've read David Copperfield, we've read Jane Eyre, and they're all very sad stories of cruelty within families.
Yeah.
Again, this is absolutely shocking that an uncle could want to get rid of his 14-year-old nephew just because the nephew was aware of an affair, illicit affair that he was happening, indulging in, and the nephew had threatened to spill the beans. So, but whatever said and done, this act of cruelty he could not ultimately complete because this boy was an extremely brave boy. He was in that deep well and he managed to come out of it. He tried 3 times, and then finally everybody, at least the perpetrator thought he was dead and gone.
Yeah.
But he managed to actually come out of that deep well in Kurturi, and then he's lived to tell the tale quite literally, and he's giving actual statements. So I think people like these kind of cruel uncles should be brought to book and sent to jail, and attempt to murder cases should be slapped on these people. They deserve absolutely no mercy.
Okay. And the last case, last news that we have is the SGPDA official engaged for Sopo collection gets threatened. Now this issue is a long drawn issue. This collection of Sopo at the SGPDA market has been a long standing problem which has figured in many of the MMC meetings.
See, I will not go into this specific case per se because the problem is bigger than this particular case. See, what happens is Sopo collection, especially in the MMC, Margaon MMC, has always been seen as a treasure box for the powers that be who are ruling the particular council. It ultimately it boils down to who's controlling the council.
And that points the
political
fingers
entity.
also at the MLAs.
Yes, and ultimately the political entity, the political powerhouse there appoints the SOPO collector. Okay, there may be rules, there may be tenders, all that is all manipulated. They appoint the SOPO collector. The SOPO collector collects the amount of money. He does not hand over the money that he's collected, shows a collection amount which is far less than what he's collected.
Yeah.
That less amount also at times is not put into the MMC coffers, and you have the rest of the money going to whoever is the ultimate beneficiary of it. Because if the SOPO collection in MMC was done legally and honestly all this while, MMC's financial condition wouldn't have been so precarious. So that, I mean, the SGPDA's, I'm talking of the SGPDA, sorry, not MMC, I'm talking of the SGPDA. The SGPDA's condition wouldn't have been so serious. So whoever is controlling the SGPDA controls the SOPO collection, and that, so in this particular case, yes, threats and all that will happen, because anybody who's a SOPO collector, he will be at loggerheads with somebody else who is not the SOPO collector and who would be. So it's obviously a big ticket, and you would like to get into it. But so I'm not getting into the details of this specific case, because very honestly I'm not aware of the merits or demerits of this particular case.
Yeah.
But overall we know that that SOPO collection has become a big political exercise, and because of the money involved, it has led to things that are not very normal and borders on threats and violence also.
Okay, now before we wind up, can we just go back to the dominant story of the week with regard to land grabbing?
Yes.
Now today there was a press conference by Trajan De Mello, and he has raised certain questions from his personal point of view, and he is a complainant in the Cerula Comunidade land grabbing case. Now he has, first of all, he has demanded that there should be a fast track court. Given how cases proceed, and you have also mentioned it with regard to SIT.
Yes.
He has also demanded that all these inquiry and investigation which is done by the SIT be supervised by a retired judge. He has also raised the issue of time-bound inquiry, and lastly he has also pointed out that the terms of the reference of SIT have not been enunciated in the initial order.
This holds true for all SITs. It holds true for the land grab case also. Each of these points are very well taken. What is most important is that who is actually investigating, and whether the SIT has the required resources, manpower and dedicated manpower to do this fast. Whether it is a retired judge or a non-retired judge, ultimately who does the work? The groundwork is not done by the judge. You have to have proper investigative officers on the ground.
Yeah.
You have to have proper investigative officers who are not only policemen. I think ambit of the SIT should be increased to have multidisciplinary specialists to handle this. I think that is most important. The suggestions that have been made are well taken, but it'll be even more meaningful if we do it in this kind of a manner.
Okay. Okay, so that's all we have for this week on the week that was. We hope that you enjoyed our program in recollecting the headlines of the past week. I thank my guest, Group Editor Mr. Sujay Gupta. We hope that you keep watching the week that was. Keep watching Herald TV.